We are in the process of legal literacy program, and yes, we are back with a new topic, that is media laws and human rights. The aim of our program is to emphasize on the connection between the media laws and the human rights in constitutional perspectives, and the role of media in carrying out its promotional and protective roles of human rights. This workshop will also highlight on the issue that how the various media laws can bring an impact on the rights of the human, and what are the criteria that makes a media responsible in the interest of protection of human rights. And for enlightening us on this interesting issue, we had a very dignified speaker with us, Ms. Nisha Bhambhani, ma'am. Ms. Nisha ma'am is an advocate in full-time practice in New Delhi, India since 1994. She has over the last more than 2 decades followed and advised on the evolving media law and regulatory landscape in the country. Her practice includes advising media clients from the print, electronic, and digital worlds, and managing their litigation in civil and criminal courts in the Supreme Court, Delhi High Court, as also before specialized tribunals, the Telecom Disputes Settlement and Appellate Tribunal, and the Press Council of India, which entertain different types of media-related disputes. Ms. Nisha ma'am has also been involved with litigations relating to the free speech rights of media, has dealt extensively with claims arising from defamations, copyright violations relating to news and current affairs media. She has also been a guest lecturer at the Jindal Global Law University on the issues relating to freedom of speech and expressions under Article 91A of the Indian Constitution. She has also conducted several trainings related to media and fake news, misinformation, disinformation. She has also been frequently invited as panelist at various events on media-related issues. Ms. Nisha Bhambhani is also a trained mediator and was on the editorial board of the book titled as The Power of Mediation, and eclectic collections of writing published by the Madhyam. Ma'am, it's our privilege and honor to have you with us. We welcome you and request you to please enlighten us with your experience and knowledge. Over to you, ma'am.
Yes, thank you for inviting me. It's a topic about which I am passionate: media, laws, and human rights. If the topic could have been media, laws, and human rights, I preferred media, laws, and human rights purely because media, we know the relationship between media and human rights. So let me start by, should I start by asking the questions as to what everybody understands, anybody understands between media laws and human rights? I understand media and human rights, but media laws and human rights, would anybody have a view on it?
Yes, definitely. I think it will be really nice.
Because then I can start if somebody has a view on media laws and human rights, not media and human rights.
Yes,
or should I start and then we'll ask the questions?
We should invite the audience, Astha, so that can.
Yes. Does anybody have a view on what this topic would mean?
Yeah.
So I request any of the participants who wants to give answer to this question, please welcome. We request to share your experience or share your knowledge with us.
Because otherwise it's a monologue.
Yeah.
But if you'd rather have my understanding of what it is, then I'll continue. But if somebody has a view on media laws and human rights, which has a two-sided, it's a double-edged sword, then you may kindly ask me a question and then we can continue. Anyone? Otherwise, I'll start. Okay, so I'll start with media laws and human rights. Everybody.
There is a question. Yeah. There is a question in the audience box, and the question is: I feel, ma'am, this would rather comment it is. I feel, ma'am, it deals with media laws in preserving human rights.
Yeah.
So Asu Singh is saying that.
Correct. So Ashu, you're right. It is media laws preserving human rights, but interestingly, the media laws also violate journalists' human rights. So we'll deal with that. That is another aspect which is really interesting, because the media laws are essentially to protect the media, to also keep media within certain parameters, so that they report accurately, verify, neutrally, impartially to protect human rights. But many a time we have laws, colonial laws, where the human rights, and it's a media law, where the human rights of the journalist, the media personnel itself is violated. So these are the two things I'll deal with today. One,
Anushika has raised hand and she wanted to say something. Anushika.
Yeah, so basically human rights and media laws are intervening in the sense that if media is protected in a way, it protects human rights in the same parallel way. So if we are protecting the right to speech or right to express themselves, so in a way we are protecting the media rights as well as that's the basic fundamental rights that we are protecting.
correct. That's a good understanding.
Thank you. Anushka, can you tell us, like, are you a student or law practitioner?
No, I'm third year law student.
Okay. And
From
Ms.
IPU.
Asha Singh wanted to comment on. Asha Singh ji.
No, I have a question, actually a point for discussion.
Yes.
And it's really to do with publishing, say, for example, photographs about celebrities.
Yes.
And say a very popular political figure or a star, and an accident occurs. So, and the picture is not very respectful to the personal dignity of the person. Then are there any laws to prohibit such publication?
Yes, because
yeah, that's all.
Yeah. So Article 21, privacy is now recognized by the decision of Puttu Swami and by several other decisions which say that you can report accurate news and news which is not of public interest, but in the interest of the public. So like in Naomi Campbell, the media went and took photographs of Naomi Campbell outside her addiction. You know, she was going to a rehabilitation for addiction, and they photographed her outside. So she sued the media, the print media, and they lost because they said that there was no need for the public. This was her private right. And there was no need for the public to know that she was going for rehabilitation. So yes, there's a difference between what the public is really interested in, which is gossip and all that, and what is in the interest of public, which they need to know in order to help democracy thrive.
So
Yeah.
there is another comment from Vibhuti Narayan.
Yes.
And he or she is saying media laws give voice to the fundamental rights and expression of people and communicate it to government, whereas human rights gives protection and shield of inherent rights of people.
So that is a part of it, but what I'm going to say is,
can I
yes.
add something?
Yes.
Is it also going to deal with like how media affects us? Like recently also like Chief Justice of India, C.V. Ramana, also said that the media is becoming biased, which
Yes.
is a threat to democracy because media should be neutral in every sense that will give guide to information or guide to know to like us, like citizens. So isn't it also going against us?
Yes. So to answer both questions, freedom of speech and expression is also a human right. That is also considered a human right, and I'll go through it. I'll take you through it. The other thing is, yes, now I'll also go through, apart from media laws and human rights, as to why the media has come under pressure to misreport. And it does tend to misreport from time to time. And I would say that, yes, some kind of regulation is necessary. But as someone said, if you've watched in Netflix, please watch a series called Social Dilemma, which says, Asta, I think Noor is.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So I think, if you watch the series Social Dilemma, they'll tell you that it's better to have trash TV than to have strict regulations. So we'll go through that, and, I will tell you why media needs to be regulated, but not regulated to the extent that there is only one viewpoint which comes through. So any other questions, or should I start, or have I answered?
Ma'am, one hand is also raised, and she is Pranjali Agrawal. I think she wants to ask some question too.
Yes.
Yeah. over
Ma'am,
here.
I just wanted to state a point. I read recently that the private information of a pregnant teen in one of the states of USA was leaked, and because of which her right to privacy was violated, and since abortion is now illegal in the USA, some action was being taken against her. So I just wanted to state this point.
No, you're right. You're right. Media does tend to go overboard in its reporting. But it's interesting because the topic I have today is different from that. The topic there would be how much media needs to be regulated. And there, I personally am a free speech lawyer. As I said, when you get into regulation, sure, I'll show you all the laws that we have which regulates media. You don't need any more regulation, but an over-regulated media will kill democracy. Because if you have a regulated media, when you stop other people from speaking, equally it comes back to the public, and everything becomes regulated in a problem. So we can analyze that. I mean, I'm very happy to see so many people are interested in the media topic.
Yes,
Should I start, and then we'll...
Yes,
and please feel free to disagree
please.
with me. Please feel free to disagree with me, okay? Because everybody's views and experiences are their own. Okay, so media laws and human rights is the topic today. And as former Chief Justice of India, Chief Justice H.L. Dattu said, the golden triangle comprising equality before law, freedom of speech and expression, and protection of life and personal liberty under Article 14, which is equality of law, 19, which is free speech, 19(1)(a), and 21, which is protection of life and personal liberty, human rights would come in that, of the Indian Constitution, provides a broad framework of rights and responsibilities that the media must actively seek to operate within. So therefore, what Chief Justice Dattu is saying is, when media reports, it should keep in mind Article 21, the restrictions of Article 19(2), which are the only 8 heads under which you can form a legislation and restrict freedom of speech in India, unlike the United States, where you can't restrict it. Amendment 1 rights are absolute. So there is a big connection between Article 19 and Article 21, and most of the time, you're right, when privacy is violated, courts and cases are filed, courts are required to balance the two fundamental rights, the fundamental right of freedom of speech and expression of the media and the privacy rights of the individual concerned. See, now we'll first do media, we'll do human rights, and then we'll do the laws and how they impact human rights, and the laws impact their own journalists. So media, of course, the legacy media is your print, electronic, but the new media is the one which is now more dynamic. New media includes websites, blogs, social medias, podcasts, YouTube, all of it, Facebook. And that is the media which is gaining ground very fast, because not only in the traditional legacy media, you had journalists who verified their reports in the most cases and had editors, whereas in the new media, everybody is a journalist. Everybody WhatsApps or puts up on Facebook what they see and interpret. So these are the two kinds of media of which new media is gaining big ground. The other thing is, media is the fourth pillar of democracy. There's the legislature, as everybody knows, there's the executive, judiciary, but I think media today is a very important component, because in 1972, as far back as that, in Bennett and Coleman versus Union of India, the Honorable Supreme Court had held a very interestingly had observed that intellectual advances made by civilization would have been impossible without freedom of speech and expression. And at any rate, political democracy is based on the assumption that such freedom must be jealously guarded. In the above matter, Bennett and Coleman, freedom of press is the ark of the covenant of democracy, because public criticism is very essential to the working of its institutions. Agar public criticism nahi hoga, if there is no criticism of any law or policy which comes in, democracy will not survive. Never has criticism been more necessary than today. It's very interesting that even in 1972, Supreme Court said that when weapons of propaganda are so strong and so subtle, but must be limited. So they are limited by the legislations formed under 19.2. Now, 19.2 has 8 heads. Whatever law is formed by the legislature has to not only fit into those 8 heads, which are contempt, defamation, public order, decency and morality, sovereignty, etc., but they have to be reasonable as well. So you need those 2 criteria. See, media is the ark of democracy, but a free and independent media is also a watchdog. It is necessary. It is necessary for the protection of human rights and for sustenance of democracy. If there is no independent media, and if the media is biased or the media is under some pressure, financial or otherwise, due to ownership, whatever, then the information which goes out to the public is misinformation or disinformation or malinformation. The public will never be able to form a view on the policy as to whether it's good or not, including on human rights. And therefore, it is very essential to have an independent media. Press freedom is needed to ensure all rights in society are protected. Now let's come to human rights. See, human rights are rights which a person is born with. And human rights relate to life, liberty, equality, dignity. All of this is human rights. Your freedom to religion, property, freedom to assemble, right to privacy, very important right to vote, right to a good standard of living, right to food, housing, water, sanitation, right to work, and most importantly, right to education. All these are human rights. What is also very, very important is the right to life, which includes the prohibition on torture, harassment, inhuman treatment, and humiliation. So the 2 very important rights, apart from the rest of the rights, are the right to free speech. Everybody is born with the right to free speech and the right to life. So if you look at the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 19, it says everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. This right includes the right to hold opinions without interference and to seek and receive and impart information and ideas through any media, regardless of the frontiers. So therefore, in a democracy, the respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms are deeply connected and they can't be separated. If one is affected, then the other gets affected equally. So according to a non-profit organization, you may have heard of it, Reporters Without Borders, it says a free and aware media is a tool which prevents transformation of human rights violations into a part of everyday life. So if media is a tool which is used in a positive manner, and the laws relating to that media are not only legislated, but used in a proper manner, there will be no human rights violations. Now, whether that happens or not, we will come to it. Then the media is in the central position regarding realization of human rights. In an ideal situation, media acts as the eyes and ears reporting human rights violations in the world. The interesting part is now 19.1a, when it was framed as freedom of speech and expression was given to citizens, media rights of free speech were not included. That was only read into it by Supreme Court in Romesh Thapa versus State of Madras early in the 50s and Brij Bhushan versus State of Delhi. That is when Supreme Court said, yes, media has a right to free speech and a right to disseminate information. Interestingly, in Raj Narayan's case, it was said, again, Supreme Court held that if media has a right to give information, disseminate information, the individual has and the public has a right to receive information as well. So it's a two-sided right. The right, 19.1a is right to disseminate and right to receive. Now, we have freedom of speech and it is restricted by 1902. What are those laws which have been framed under 1902 and have been upheld to be constitutional? Those laws are, you have the Cinematograph Act, which regulates films and cinema. You have the Statutory Press Council Act, which has the norms of journalistic conduct and which deals with print media. Now, so this is 19(1)(a). We will come to the Penal Code in 2 minutes. You have television, the broadcasting industry, which is governed by the Cable Television Networks Act 1995, Cable Television Regulation Act 1995, and Cable Television Networks Rule 1994. Now, these two act and rules have a program code, which all broadcasting media has to follow, which is things like decency, morality, no obscenity. They can't broadcast anything which violates the sovereignty of the country, and things. Several codes are within the program code and the advertising code, which regulates content. And that, to regulate that recently, originally it was looked into by the Interministerial Committee of the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, but recently the legislature passed the Cable Television Network Amendments Rules 2021 with a 3-tier mechanism to decide whether there's a violation of the program code. That 3-tier mechanism is under challenge in the Supreme Court, because it is said by the media that it is a violation of their rights, and there are three levels, and the self-regulatory body is finally overseen by an oversight mechanism of the executive. So there are several reasons it has been challenged, including under 19(1)(a). Now, big question is, are the social media platforms regulated? Twitter, Facebook, social media platforms, and this was a big thing. So against the OTT in 2019, there were petitions filed, and though you have the Information and Technology Act, and that act regulates, it was originally for e-commerce, and its objective, if you read, is essentially for e-commerce, but the under Section 69A of the Information Technology Act 2000, the central government was empowered to issue directions to block public's access to any information which they believed was violative of sovereignty and friendly relations with countries and that kind of thing. Under 79, there were intermediaries like Facebook and Twitter and Google and all of them who came within the realm of 79, and they were held responsible only under certain circumstances. They were not held liable if they did not give the information to the viewer, and there were 4 conditions. Now what happens is that a lot of people felt, and the legislature felt, that it was not good enough. So to control the content that goes on social media, so they brought about, and intermediaries, Facebook, for example, has had a huge impact in elections in various countries over the world. Information Technology Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Code of Ethics, Rules 2021, was brought out in 2021, and they seek to introduce a code of ethics and a grievance redressal mechanism, and regulate not only intermediaries like Facebook and Twitter, but also all news publishers, which includes digital and linear. They also have a grievance redressal mechanism, a 3-tier one, which has been again challenged in the various high courts, and the challenge is pending in the Supreme Court now, because again, there are several grounds for questioning the establishment of this grievance redressal mechanism. It's been challenged by the intermediaries, by television, and everybody. So the content law for social media, for television and all exists, and it is stringent. In cable television, you can go to prison, you can be fined, as you can in IT rules also. Now we come to Asta, can you put back the Indian Penal Code? The next slide. This is a very interesting slide. It will show you your general laws, which now apply to the media. And within these laws, which were originally framed to maintain harmony and regulate the media, please see Section 126 of the 4 of the Indian Penal Code, sedition. If anybody excites disaffection to the government established by law, you would be punished with imprisonment or fine. What is disaffection established against the government established by law is not the government presently ruling, but the state. But this is a colonial law, and its understanding at the ground level is very poor. Because its understanding is if you say anything against any government in power, since 1950, you can be jailed, which is not the correct interpretation, but it's colonial law. Now, 153A was brought in to prevent promoting enmity between different groups on grounds of religion, race, place of birth, residence, etc. 153B, now these are all general laws, but they apply to the media. There shouldn't be any imputations and assertions which are prejudicial to national integration. 295, injuring and defiling any place of worship, temple or mosque or church or gurdwara, you can't do it. Then 295A, deliberate and malicious acts to outrage religious feelings of any class by insulting its religion and belief. And for all this, it's punishment, fine, or both. So one would say this is all for protection of the communal harmony, of the country, of its national integration and all that. And the very interesting law which was challenged in Supreme Court is defamation, criminal defamation. 499 is a provision which has been weaponized by private parties and targeted journalists and have affected the human rights of journalists. So both 124A and 499 of the IPC were challenged. As of today, 124A IPC sedition has been stayed, its operation in the Supreme Court. And 499, the journalists went to court, several people went to court. They said, you have civil defamation. Aapne agar sue karna hai, so you can sue for money that you have been defamed. Please file a suit. Don't use 499 because 499 is criminal and it is being weaponized. If a journalist writes anything against a private person who doesn't like it, they will file a criminal complaint. Usually summons will issue. They'll say so-and-so heard and I got defamed, and it becomes a criminal case. But for whatever reason, Supreme Court upheld 499 IPC in the Subramaniam Swamy case and said that it is not unconstitutional. I've gone through the information technology guidelines and I've gone through the other one. So these slides are just so that you keep in mind that these various legislations, whether the Indian Penal Code or the Information Technology Act or the Cable Television Act, are there to regulate media, content of media. They were made essentially for keeping harmony, for the progress of the country. But the way that it is coming about is different. So now we come to, now you have self-regulatory bodies. I'm a great proponent of self-regulation. There's the Press Council and there is for the electronic media, now there's News Broadcasters and Digital Association. And they have their authority, NBDSC, where they believe that fundamental principles of electronic journalists should be to accept that they are trustees of the public and therefore make it important enough to report the truth fairly, with integrity, independence, impartially, neutrally, and fairly. So these are self-regulatory bodies. Though Press Council is a statutory body, still it is not as draconian as a criminal law or a criminal authority or the police, for example. Now, how does media affect human rights? Or do media laws affect human rights? What is the interconnect between media laws and journalists themselves? Have the media laws now reached a stage that they are affecting the human rights of the journalists and of the media itself? See, it is accepted that media should report accurate and verified facts. I think somebody's...
I request all the participants to please mute your speaker.
Yeah, so verified, neutral, impartial, they should report. And that is what will help prevent human rights violations. But in spite of being balanced, truthful, that is a part of it, media has some problems. Their problems are, especially print and electronic media, TRPs, which is the television rating points. Each one wants to be the highest to get advertising. That's one. Two, ownership matters. Finances matter. The ideology matters. So all these things, including finances, commercial, social, ownership, TRPs, results in media failing to report accurately. And that affects human rights. But that is to do with the media. Therefore, fake news is put out. Therefore, if you remember, there was this issue of Nizamuddin Markaz where the Tablighi Jamaat was vilified by the media at the time of the coronavirus, but the Aurangabad bench of the Bombay High Court clearly said that it was not the Tablighi Jamaat who spread the information, and this is recorded that Aurangabad bench said it was propaganda of the media. Now, media has its problems, particularly traditional media, because their revenues are dying out. They should still definitely report accurately and they should specially report other human rights, the rights of the Dalits, Adivasis, women, rural poor. I retract the term Dalit, but economically backward, women, rural poor, urban poor, the economically, some people who are suffering economically, the unorganized sector, they should report on that. But because of the social, political, financial, commercial problems, media tends to report biasly. That has been the trend as of late, and social media has, of course, become uncontrollable because everybody is a journalist and they're constantly trolling, WhatsApping and all that. But the laws which are there, I would say today, which had been evolved to protect human rights, including privacy, including religious sentiments and all that, are now possibly can and are being used against the journalists and their human rights, especially Section 499, which is weaponized by private parties, and 124A, which has been stayed by the Supreme Court. Now, it has been reported in 2021 that 55 journalists were killed. There was violence, intimidation, harassment. Women journalists also faced it. And Reporters Without Borders reported that out of 100, and this is worldwide, out of 180 countries and territories examined, journalism was totally blocked or seriously impeded in 73 countries and constrained in 59 countries. People's access to information dropped while reporters faced more barriers to their work. Now, the thing is that it's all very well to have the laws, but unless the laws are correctly understood at the ground level and implemented, it will always violate human rights. And therefore, the connection between, free speech is a human right. Any law which affects free speech will affect human right, whether it is of the public or it is of the person on social media, television, or of the journalist. So this is so intertwined. It's a delicate relationship between media laws and human rights. Benjamin Franklin, one of the most prominent founders of and statesmen of the United States, had clearly said, without freedom of thought, there can be no such thing as wisdom and no such thing as public liberty. Without freedom of speech, in a free society which boasts of a democracy, it is the Constitution which should be the supreme law. So it is interesting how media laws have played out throughout the world, where in fact they've actually led to violation of human rights. Media is one thing that media should protect. Media has its own problems, but the laws have been used to violate not only journalists' rights, but a lot of public rights. And I would like to invite questions on whatever I have said. I made it succinct because to go on in a monologue is not my style of working.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. I think lots of queries are already waiting.
You can remove the
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
So just two quick query. Then afterward we can open. So somebody want to someone has raised hand and they want to ask in person itself. So one observation was by Supratim Ghosh, and she's saying media law is needed as media is considered fourth pillar of democracy. And the way we are seeing media is manipulated. So she feels that media law is needed. And Shal Shakya has observed that if we put censorship norm on media, would it lead to violation of their rights? So
yes. The question is, media needs regulation. We have enough regulations. I've told you about television regulation, social media, IT regulation, the most dangerous regulation, Indian Penal Code. There are several other regulations, Cinematographic Act, Press Council, NBD, all kinds of regulations exist, statutory and self-regulatory. The problem is that if you increase the regulation on the media, see the media today, especially legacy media, is under pressure financially and otherwise. So I request you to watch Social Dilemma, where somebody actually says it's better to have bad media than to regulate it to that extent where there doesn't exist any media. Then democracy will collapse, because if media says something, people can criticize it.
Yeah.
You can if A media says something, B media says something else, and we are hoping for plurality of media, whether it's social media, print media, or electronic media. But the moment you start regulating it, who is regulating it? The legislature. Who is implementing it? The executive. And the people who are implementing it at the ground level really don't understand, for example, like sedition, disaffection towards government established by law is not ruling government. It is India. It is India as a state. If you do something to the flag or the anthem, that is absolutely sedition. But to use sedition for every small thing that a person puts up on Facebook, or a journalist take 499 IPC. If somebody writes against one of our industrialists, media is not rich, journalists are not that kind of, I don't have that kind of money. You will have the industrialist immediately going to court in some vague place, because today you also have internet. See, when you had print media, you had to file either where you were staying or where the print media was published. Same for electronic, but electronic also became difficult. And now with internet, they'll file in some small place against a media house or against a person who said something, and you have to go all the way under that 499. You may be staying in wherever, you may be staying in Delhi, you may have to go to Kanyakumari. Or you may be staying in Chennai and you'll have to go to Assam or Gujarat or any place, Madhya Pradesh, Kerala. I mean, you'll be staying in one of these places and you'll have to go to another state. That is the impact of 499 IPC, and it's criminal, so you have to appear. So when you have this criminal law, it'll have a chilling effect on media, and nobody will publish against, supposing there's a corruption allegation against an industrialist. You publish it. Immediately 499 will be filed. He will not file a civil suit for defamation saying I want 1,000 crores. He will file 499 to threaten that if you don't withdraw the story from the net or from your magazine, I will send you to jail. Now a journalist or a media house cannot afford this kind, 1,000 crores being filed. An industrialist filed 1,000 crores against a news portal who published something verified, is what they say, and they filed 499, and that news portal or media house does not have that kind of money. So therefore regulation up to a point, yes, but if you have if that regulation starts affecting the human rights of the journalists, the media house and the public, then we have a problem.
So the queries are also waiting, but some raised hands are there. So Isha Arora, you can take the question. Yourself and video also, if possible.
Ma'am, I wanted to, I was reading something, like there was this news that India is becoming a fake news hotspot.
It's becoming a paid news.
Fake news hotspot.
Isha, I can't hear you clearly.
Like fake news hotspot.
Yes. Okay.
So I was going through that, so it was like, there should be regulation, there should be information. Like the citizens should have enough information what is right, what is not right, and like today's generation, citizens are being whitewashed to think in a certain way. So it was all about that. What are your views on that?
Yeah, Isha, you're absolutely right. I've conducted workshops also on this fake news, disinformation, because sometimes it's deliberately done. And then now what's happening is there is worldwide training happening. Even in India, there is training happening of journalists how to even make out fake audio clips. And this is very famous in WhatsApp. WhatsApp passes clips and people just forward it without actually trying to verify. So journalists are being trained to verify from sources. For example, the self-regulatory body NBDSA, the self-regulatory authority, has advised the members of NBDA, please don't pick up any WhatsApp clip and report on it. because there is no verification on social media, on the new media. The problem has become that there is no verification. In fact, Prateek Sinha of Alt News, now Alt News is a fact-checking website. He clearly said that one of the reasons for this fake news is cheap mobile. Because you have cheap mobile data, and fake news used to exist before, but it was difficult to disseminate. Now with with cheap mobile, everybody just forwards it without actually seeing what is the source and is it correct. So there is training happening of journalists and otherwise at ground level to see which audio clips are fake, to see, that before you forward it, please try and verify it from another source. And not one source sends it and you forward it. And fake news is being also done deliberately. So one is unintentional, which is misinformation. You think it's valid. One is disinformation, which is deliberately done to create various kinds of disharmony. The intentional ones are the ones which are dangerous. And therefore, before one forwards anything, any clip of WhatsApp, you have to verify it either from electronic, other digital media, or from newspapers. Otherwise, it shouldn't be forwarded, especially if it has the effect of creating disharmony or problems in society. Those are the only kind of fake news that go around, which create disharmony. And that is disinformation. But you can't, you have the IT rules. You have them, and you have these other rules, part of which has been challenged, 2021 IT rules 2021. You may have umpteen rules. Unless it is understood and implemented correctly, you won't be able to prevent. So it is, as I always say, it's the persons who are at the helm of institutions, their integrity, which is actually determines a society, because you can have umpteen laws and it can be implemented or not implemented. So therefore, for fake news, there's training happening worldwide and in India, and Facebook is said to be a big culprit of that. And they also are attempting to do things, because the first law came in, NetZ came in Germany in 2017, France followed. But even in France and Germany, when they brought in regulation on the digital media, there was an uproar by the public, because it is better to have trash media than to have no media at all.
Yeah.
And it's all about good faith. If I get a WhatsApp and I see that it's going to create trouble somewhere else, it is my responsibility to say it's for me to ask, what good will this WhatsApp picture or clip or saying do? And if I feel it's not going to do, or I need to verify it, why forward it?
Thank you.
One more question.
There is Advocate Subham Priyadarshi. He's waiting to.
I think Isha had one more question, Noor.
Yeah.
What are your views on like TV media debates and all?
On TV debates, okay.
I think
I'll tell you. I'll just give her one example. I won't tell you my personal views, because I am lawyers for the media. I know their pluses and I know their minuses, but the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court Chief Justice of India presently today had said, Justice N.V. Ramanna, that as of now, electronic media are running kangaroo courts, quote unquote. But in spite of saying that, he said self-regulation is the answer. The answer is not to increase regulation. Yeah.
Advocate Subham Priyadarshi, please.
Yeah, so my question is, ma'am, in K. Abbas was the Supreme Court of India.
Yes. Your voice has gone.
You have unmuted yourself, Advocate.
Media properly.
Yeah,
my question is that the state has been manipulating this law and using this law to put restriction on media and use the media according to their comfort zone.
Which law? 124A? I think the...
Subham, which law?
No, Shubham, yes. What are you saying? 124A?
Yes, ma'am. Don't you think the state, through its censor board, has been manipulating this law and use the media according to their comfort zone?
I said exactly that. It's been happening forever. It's not a recent phenomena. The thing is that these laws are actually anti-human rights. 124A is a colonial law, which is why it's been stayed by the Supreme Court. Because you see, all these words are not understood by the ground level person. For example, you had 66A of the Information Technology Act, which has been struck down by the Supreme Court as unconstitutional and antivirus the Constitution. Even till recently, people were being booked under 66A. Somebody went to the Supreme Court and said, please, reiterate it that 66A doesn't exist. So Supreme Court said, file contempt. File contempt against those persons because 66A doesn't exist on the books anymore. So the whole problem is that the person at the ground level, in spite of 66A of the Information Technology Act being held ultra-virus the Constitution, was still implementing it. So yes, so the 124A has been stayed by Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has said that the executive should reconsider whether this law should be removed from the statute books.
Thank you.
Supratim Ghosh actually wanted to ask question from very long. Supratim, please go on.
Ma'am, I wanted to ask that we are seeing that in today's digital media, electronic media, we are seeing that the kind of debates, the kind of programs which are being held, it sparks religious tensions or communal disharmony among the people. Yes, the self-regulation, the self-regulating authorities are there, but are they enough to combat this problem?
Okay, so Supratim, the thing is that we have to balance two things. Would you rather have that, or would you have a scenario where they were so regulated and the laws were so implemented as per the regulation? Because there doesn't seem to be a balance at the moment. Even previously, perhaps in the earlier days, and because I read Bennett and Coleman in 1972. You read that line. I can read it again. I was quite surprised when I reread it. And even at that stage, in Bennett and Coleman, it was the Supreme Court says that never has criticism been more necessary than today, when weapons of propaganda are so strong and so subtle. This was the observation by the Supreme Court in 1972. So all countries go through these phases. And having said, see, self-regulation, yes, it works up to an extent, but it's all voluntary. But even as of date, the Chief Justice of India has said that electronic media is a kangaroo court holding debates. Therefore, they're kangaroo courts. But at the end, he said self-regulation, because we already have so much regulation. Your IPC is under regulation unto yourself. Under all those 10 provisions, you can send everybody to jail. But is that the idea? The idea is actually to educate people. And with new media, forget the debates. The actual problem is your new media, not like legacy media now is doing all this to actually catch up financially for TRPs with new media. See, there's also a race of TRPs to get advertisers. Most advertising, this is actually at ground level, is going to, a lot of it is being transferred to digital media. So electronic has a problem, print is dying, and print is still today the most reliable, because print you have to actually, it's not immediate, right? You have to analyze it and put it down, and you can actually be sued for defamation and stuff like that. So reliable today of the three kinds, I'd say, is probably print media. But digital media is the one who, is also regulated. But till people realize themselves, how much regulation will you do? And will that regulation not end up affecting journalists who are actually doing their work, instead of the ones who are spreading all the hatred or, misinformation and all that? So there has to be a balance, and free speech rights are human rights. So if journalists go into jail for whatever reason, and they've been going into jail since we got independence, so there's a problem. I have a problem as a media lawyer, and which is why journalism, as what is happening is journalism as a profession is dying, because it's not dying, but it's not, people don't want to do ground reporting. Yes. Therefore, WhatsApp, therefore quickly, therefore, whatever you get, he said this, it's all hearsay evidence. that's very unfortunate. It has to do with ownership. It has to do with TRPs. It has to do with the lack of finances. Whereas digital media, you can do free. You can have a troll party and troll some journalist free because he said something on Facebook or so. I would really request watch Social Dilemma. It's a very interesting serial on Netflix, which actually tells you that, regulation is, for example, forget regulation now. Google is a huge, and Facebook. I mean, till they realize internally they should regulate themselves, you can have as many regulations, as many these things, it'll become impossible. Facebook has been said to have affected elections in countries. I mean,
Yes.
that is really something. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
so
that's
related,
also hearsay evidence.
related
I
one very related observation made by Manojit Mathi, and he is saying, is it correct to provide the power to common mass to act as a media through social media? And this is the last question. I think time is.
This is also a question of balance. Yes, the public needs to know, and public needs to be trained to know, not get affected by fake news. They need to know, yes, today you can't avoid it, right? Everybody has a mobile, everybody has WhatsApp, you can't avoid it. But what you can do for the sake of the country and fellow men and for human rights is to, before sending anything, just take a look and see whether it will create any kind of trouble in any state, society, or anything, I would say. But new media is inevitable. It's here to stay, and there's nothing much we can do about it. We can regulate ourselves. Regulation exists under the IT rules 2021 and IPC. So, yeah.
I think we have taken enough questions. One last, my personal understanding and my observation was that when we say media as a fourth pillar of democracy, and the responsibility, of course, start from there. So can you, this is my personal observation, and I'm asking you just one opinion from the legal point of view, that is it still relevant to consider media as a fourth pillar in present time?
Absolutely. Media should be today the first pillar all over the world, because without media, it doesn't matter what they're doing now, but if media were to actually, even if 1, 2, 3 media, news portals, there are news portals, so many news portals on digital media, and electronic also, there are some channels, and print media. If you get 3 opinions, you can form an opinion. Not all of them give the same opinion. Majority do, but there are still some who don't. And it is only media who will, our covenant of democracy. Otherwise, you will not have a democracy with just 3 pillars.
Thank you very much. Over to you, Asta.
Yes, sir. Ma'am, there is still some question. If you have the time, can we put on the question?
Sure. Yes.
Yeah. Ma'am, there is one question. Do you think that the law on criminal defamation and even defamation generally is being used or rather misused as a tool to strike?
Yes, absolutely. I think 499, it's been upheld by the Supreme Court as constitutional, not ultra vires, but it is being used as a tool to kill journalism and to prevent any story. If they write about any individual who they write about financial transactions or anything, a 499 is filed. And they are told to withdraw the story, otherwise it will carry on. So the problem is the process. See, the journalist, if he has done his due diligence, verified, accurate, everything, at the end, he will be let off, right? He won't be imprisoned. He won't be convicted. But the process is very tedious and takes a very long time. And that is what the private individuals bank on. They don't bank on the fact that eventually he won't be let off. Of course, if he's got a verified story, documents, he will be let off. But the process is very long. That is the process is the punishment itself. Yeah. I think Supratim wanted to ask something. His hand is up.
Ma'am, there are a lot of questions, but we have actually a shortage of time. And I request all the participants to have this meeting this link available on the YouTube. You can access from there also. I know it's a very, very wonderful session. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for enlightening us and depicting the relation between the media laws and the human rights by highlighting the various provisions of the laws and the recent judgments delivered by the Supreme Court and the High Court. It's really a very, very wonderful session. And I will also like to invite now my Executive Director, sir, to say a few words on this session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. I think I have said enough in terms of query and observation. So it was really wonderful and very informative and very interactive also. And we see like huge participation from different walk of profession. Most of them are from the law fraternity, but many of the educationists were there. People from all over the country, people from Jammu Kashmir, people from Tamil Nadu, people from West Bengal. I think a huge number of participation was from West Bengal, Mumbai, Madhya Pradesh, Delhi itself, of course. So viewers, all of you, we want to see you and interact you again and again in future also. As I said, that like this is an effort to basically discuss those issues which are contemporary and have some legal aspect. And since MARG has expertise on legal awareness programs, so we would like to take your comment also, your suggestion also in future. So what kind of topic, what kind of issues you want to discuss or you want to see that can be MARG discuss on? Please consider MARG as a platform for your own platform, and we look forward to see you in future also. And thank you very much, Nisha ji. It is really wonderful.
My pleasure. It's my pleasure. It's my passion.
Yeah, we would like to hear you again in future.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for hearing me patiently. I'm very glad that you asked the questions because I like interactive sessions and not monologues.
Ma'am, some are asking about your Gmail ID also. I know it's like not possible, but if you say, we can put in the comment box. They want to ask more and more questions.
If you will want to ask more questions, you can give MARG email ID, marg
Yes.
I think that would be better.
Yes,
marg
ma'am.
at the rate of ngo-marg.org. You can call us also over our phone. You can write us through a mail. You can visit our website. You can give your input. You can visit MARG media platform, social media platform also. We have platform on Facebook. We have platform on Instagram, then Twitter, and then of course YouTube also. So we of course welcome your comment and queries.
Thank you so much. Thank you all the participants. Thank you. Good evening to all.
Thank you.